Shabbat Shalom, Shana Tova, Boker Tov. I hope you are all doing well and keeping safe. As you might have noticed, this Rosh Hashanah, on this first day of Rosh Hashanah, we are not sounding the shofar. Neither yesterday did we sound the shofar, nor today are we doing that. And there is a very interesting explanation for this halakha, for this law, in the Talmud, in the oral Torah, in our oral tradition, which I would love to explain to you. So first, in Masechet, in Tractate Rosh Hashanah, the Talmud explains that there are two ways to describe Rosh Hashanah in the Torah. The term Rosh Hashanah itself does not occur in the Torah. In the Torah, the first day of our year is either described as Yom Teruah or as Zichron Teruah. Yom Teruah means literally day of the sound of the shofar, and Zichron Teruah means the day of remembering the sound of the shofar. So if Rosh Hashanah falls on a Shabbos, that's a Zichron Teruah, that's a day of remembering the sound of the shofar. And if Rosh Hashanah falls on a Chol, on a weekday, then it's a Yom Teruah. It's a day of actually sounding the shofar. And why is that? So if we look into the Talmud, we'll find an interesting explanation for this prohibition of sounding the shofar on the Shabbat. Rabbi said, all are obligated to sound the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, but not all are experts in sounding the shofar. Therefore, the sages instituted a decree that the shofar should not be sounded on Shabbat, lest one take the shofar in his hand, or her or their hand, and go to an expert to learn how to sound it or to have them sound it for them, and due to their preoccupation, they might carry it 4 cubits in the public domain, which is desecration of the Sabbath. So what does this mean? That the sages were worried that if everyone is required to sound the shofar on a Shabbos, that Jews will just walk around with their shofarot and ask other people to help them blow the shofar, because they might be no experts for sounding the shofar. And so I told you earlier that this is an interesting explanation, and maybe you don't find it that interesting, but I can explain you why I find it so interesting. Because this prohibition of blowing the shofar on the Rosh Hashanah that falls on the Shabbos creates a hierarchy. It prioritizes one day against the other. And it's not prioritizing the day we would expect it to prioritize. If we would do now a survey among you or among other Jewish congregations who are celebrating the same day, the same holiday what we are celebrating, what is the most important day in the Jewish calendar? Many of you would, or many of us would probably say, yeah, Rosh Hashanah. Or maybe some would say Pesach because of the Exodus. And these are obviously very important events in our history and in our consciousness. But if we are reading the Talmud and other rabbinic sources, we have to realize that apparently the Sabbath is more important, because at the end of the day, it's the prohibition of carrying items for more than 4 cubits on a Sabbath that overrules the requirement for people to blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. And we end up not using the shofar on Rosh Hashanah because of this prohibition of carrying items on a Sabbath. And this made me think about our priorities and about this interesting aspect of Jewish tradition, that something that is more common, that happens literally every week, has a higher ranking than a holiday that comes only once a year. And I hope you find this also interesting, and would love to hear your thoughts and ideas on what's important in the Jewish calendar, and what's more important, what's less important, and how to prioritize time. Thank you for listening, and looking forward to the discussion.